here. We run Panel. Panel is an independent curatorial practice based in Glasgow. We incorporated in 2010, working independently in the city and beyond since then. We work on a programme of cultural activity aimed at a broad public audience, primarily through exhibitions, events. We also create publications and other critical activity, all with a focus on design. We don't have a venue, so we often work in spaces such as sort of disused shop units or domestic environments. But a key part of our practice is to work with partners. So we work with venues from, well, I actually worked in Edinburgh at the Dovecot Tapestry Studio on a collaboration with them. Also the People's Palace, which is a museum of social history, much loved in Glasgow. And also Tramway, which is one of the city's foremost venues for the presentation of contemporary visual art practice. However, our focus is on design, but actually we're really interested in repositioning design through curatorial frameworks and through the way that we commission work. So the way that we create projects is very subjective and personal actually. We start off with things that interest us, which is today has mostly been social histories and work with archives and collections. And we look at those through the lens of design to reposition them and to reposition the way public audiences look at design practice. And we extend our research into reality by commissioning creative practitioners, so designers, but also other creative practitioners from craft practitioners, artists, musicians and writers, all of whom are concerned with a specific type of making, to work with the material that we present them to create something new. And actually we hope that our curatorial practice can also be seen as an extension of that repositioning of design. So I just wanted to kind of start off by showing you a first slide, which is our logo or mark. We decided not to work with a designer to create this and worked with a sculptor, a visual artist called Nick Peter, and he created a really beautiful sculpture actually out of nails and bin bags, and created a new typeface for Panel, and we photographed it and we used that across web and on our sort of letter-headed paper, and it's become like a logo, but actually it's a physical object, and that kind of encapsulates what we do. We're really concerned with objects and the stories that are contained within them and how they're made, particularly actually how they're made here in Scotland, and we often work with industry partners. And really I suppose we're here today to talk about co-creation and the role of the creative producer. And so whilst we create frameworks and curate exhibitions and start off with collections and archives and things like that, which I wish we could go into in more detail today, but we're not going to focus on those projects. We also act as facilitators and project managers and brokers, and bring industry partners and manufacturing sector across Scotland together with designers, artists and other makers to explore what is possible here and what we can make, and hopefully to expand the possibilities for both designers and industry here in Scotland. So we're going to talk about a project called Scotland Can Make It, which has kind of been 4 years in the making. And it is an ambitious cultural project to commission 6 souvenirs that have been designed and manufactured entirely in Scotland. And although that actually doesn't sound like that much of a big project, it's a really big undertaking. Things don't get made here anymore. It's sad but true. Our textile industry is really strong, but to find a factory that you can work with in a sustainable and meaningful way is really difficult. And one of the key roles that we've had throughout this project is to really facilitate those relationships. So we just wanted to talk about the project, which started really in 2011 and will be realised this summer as part of Festival 2014, which is Glasgow's cultural offer for the Commonwealth Games. And it will be realised through an exhibition and a shop. So we're planning to produce souvenirs in batch runs and to sell them, and really to see if we can make something commercially viable out of something that was culturally instigated. and that's something that actually really interests us as curators. But we're also creating a wider programme through that, and we just wanted to talk about that, really to kind of talk about how collaboration and working together is at the heart of everything we do, from the commissioning of new products to the way that we organise our public programmes. So we'll just do that by running through the 6 souvenirs. This is the first one, which is a partnership between Atelier EB, which is a fashion designer and an artist who work together under that company name, and they've worked with Mark Milshanovitz, who's a London-based artist. They've each created a lambswool cashmere mix blanket with Beg Scotland, who are a weaving producer based in Ayr, and a carry holder with McRosty Glasgow, who are very small saddlers based just outside Glasgow and Johnston. And the 3 blankets just each, all the souvenirs, I think it's important to say, carry a story that's very particular to the object and the way that it's been designed and produced. And none of them really conform to a traditional idea of a Scottish souvenir, so there isn't any tartan or, I don't know, shortbread tins. But I think they say something that's really particular about Scotland today, about our creative practice and the way that we make, and also the way that we see ourselves, and that's something that's increasingly coming into everyday conversation, especially this year in Scotland. So it's, we feel that the notion of the souvenir isn't a throwaway piece of tat that says is something applied to it that's actually made in China. We're talking about objects, design objects, with function but also with meaning, that have been designed and made with care in Scotland. So each of these tell a personal story from each of the artists that they made. And I'll just let Stacey talk a little bit about the public programme that we're presenting alongside the souvenirs.
Thanks. And I suppose it's worth pointing out at the start of the discussion that the title for the project, Scotland Can Make It, that title was come up with before the referendum was announced, and it's about Scotland can make it as in manufacture it. It's now taken on a bit of a different tone, which is quite exciting and topical. So feel free to follow our Twitter handle, which is at panel curates, to be part of that ongoing discussion. So the public programme for the souvenirs has very much taken a collaborative approach. As Catriona says, panel is all about collaboration actually. It couldn't really function without collaborations. So for the public programme, we've worked very closely with the designers of the souvenirs to come up with an events programme that's really, I think, actually very diverse. And the ideas that we discussed, so rather than have, like, for example, 6 talks or 6 film screenings, we tried to have quite a mixed programme, and so we're just going to discuss 3 souvenirs tonight and 3 potential events, because they're not confirmed yet, and then you can by all means have a look at the rest of them as they are released one by one. So for our travel blankets that were designed by Atelier EB, Atelier EB worked with a local photographer based in Leith called Robbie Smith, and they've used still images of blankets. They look as the film makes the blankets, the still images have been put together into a film format. It looks like the blankets are sort of dancing along to a soundtrack by Sensational Creed called Nocturnal Operations. And the idea that we floated is to have a present the film to a public audience, potentially at the Commonwealth Pool during the Commonwealth Games, in the form of a sort of pool party. We're at the very early stages of discussing this with venues, so it would be really interesting to see if we manage to actually pull that off. But the idea is to have an event that allows the audience to actually be in the pool to view the film. We should probably go on to the next.
So this one probably doesn't actually need any introduction. A product designer called Catriona Duffy worked in partnership with Tunnix, iconic confectionery producers, but also owners of one of the most enduring design landmarks in Scotland, and actually, you know, is a souvenir in its own right. So she actually had quite a tough job, but her idea was really simple but really strong, to repackage 3 Tunnocks tea cakes into gold, silver and bronze medals, and her project is really a packaging one. So she's redesigned the packaging, and inside there's 3 cardboard cutout medals with accompanying ribbon, and her souvenir is really all about participation and enjoyment, and connecting, I suppose, our design project quite closely to the games that are actually also going to take place in Glasgow in 2014, which I keep forgetting about. So that's a really simple one, and I'll let Stacey talk a little bit about the event that she is organising with Place.
Yeah, so we started off thinking about things to do with the school sports day, and then quickly, in spirit of collaboration, tried to, for all of our events, partner up where possible with other cultural organisations who are producing events, culture events for the Commonwealth Games. It's a good way of sharing audience share, it's a good way of diversifying your audience, it's a good way of sharing marketing, and so there's a number of people that we're interested in working with, but the event for the Tunnocks Tea Cakes is probably going to be along the lines of an urban obstacle race. And it also gives us the opportunity to work with an audience that's a lot younger than we're normally used to working with. So we'd like to partner up with an organisation who work with children to do children's events, family-friendly events. That's something that we haven't done before, so it gives us an opportunity to learn from someone else who has that experience. We'd like to work with a furniture designer as well to reimagine the plinth. The idea would be that, as you can see, you've got a kind of gold, silver and bronze set of Tunnocks tea cakes and corresponding medals. So we'd like to work with a furniture designer to reimagine the plinth, which is obviously typically for the Olympic Games and the Commonwealth Games is quite a hierarchical structure. So we'd like to reimagine that in 3 dimensions as maybe something circular and non-hierarchical. So that gives us another fun way to collaborate with more designers for this event. So we'll just go on to the next slide, and Catriona can introduce the jelly mould that's called Commonwealth.
So this is a partnership between ceramicist Katie West, who is based in Glasgow, with Highland Stoneware, based up in Sutherland, and they're actually the last operating pottery factory in Scotland. As well as working with Highland Stoneware, Katie also has collaborated with Regano Oyster Bar, which is a bit of a Glasgow institution actually. It's one of Glasgow's oldest restaurants, and it has a really famous Art Deco inspired interior that was based upon the interiors of the ships that were built in on the banks of the Clyde. And it's, if you live in Glasgow, you often go there for a cocktail. So the interior of the mould, and actually the exterior now, this is a photograph of a sample, follows the Art Deco pattern of Regano's upholstery furniture, and the mould is unglazed and uncoloured because it is the colour of the clay that's made specifically in Highland Stoneware, and the clay is that colour because of the water in that part of the world. So there's some really close connections to place and also to memory within this souvenir. It's also very beautiful but very functional in the fact that it makes jellies and terrines and flummeries. And Katie has worked with head chef at Regano, Andy Cumming, to create a set of 3 recipes which will also be available to buy with the jelly mould on a really beautifully designed linen tea cloth that has been produced by the Centre for Advanced Textiles at Glasgow School of Art. And actually there's something really interesting about the design of food and the making process of jelly making that really ties in nicely to the project. So I think there's a really exciting event. I feel like we're promoting this a little bit, but...
So the event that we've come up with, again in the spirit of collaboration, is it's about just having fun as well. Like, we don't have clients, we can kind of do what we want. We can just come up with events that we think are fun that we would like to go to as well. So we, in collaboration with Katie West, got in touch with the famous food historian Ivan Day, who some of you will be familiar with if you watch programmes like Hairy Bikers. And he's this amazing food historian who's going to come up and do an event with us in Glasgow where he's going to talk us through the history of jelly moulds, which at first glance seems a bit, I don't know, quite unusual. But actually, when you look at his website and you hear what he has to say and his enthusiasm for it, it's fantastic. So he's going to take us all the way from 16th century German Renaissance moulds with all their heraldic imagery, all the way through to the Industrial Revolution and how moulds changed from being made from copper to be made from clay, and right the way up to modern day 3D printed moulds by people like, I keep forgetting her name, Bompus and Parr. So it's going to be fantastic, and he's also kindly agreed to bring up some of his historic moulds and let us display them as part of the event, and he's going to make a few different jellies and flummeries for us to taste and for the audience to taste, so we're understandably really excited about this. So yeah, do follow us on Twitter so that you don't miss out on tickets for that event, which will be on the 3rd of August. And
so we'll just finish off. Sorry, I have no idea how long we've taken. We'll just finish off by, I guess, talking a little bit more about the wider programme. Scotland Can Make It actually has already had a public platform. The prototypes were exhibited at the People's Palace in 2012. And I mean, we worked in that context in a museum. The rules and regulations were such that it couldn't be touched, so we created a series of display plinths from sash and case windows that reflected some of the ideas and narratives within some of the souvenirs. There's 3 that we haven't actually talked about today, but also reflected the architecture of the building. The People's Palace is a really beautiful building located in Glasgow Green, and it has a kind of really large glass house attached to the back of it. So there's a really nice kind of relationship between the display plinths and the glass house. But yeah, I suppose moving forward, our final souvenirs will be on display and on sale in Glasgow this summer, and we are trying to create a wider programme around the exhibition and the public programme by partnering up again with MakeWorks and also with MapLab. MakeWorks is a kind of a new initiative which is really exciting to map existing industry in Scotland and to, I guess, act as an introduction service to designers and makers and to get them working more closely, more sustainably with design. And MapLab is, I guess it's about a year and a half old now, and it's really growing. It's now expanding Scotland-wide. It's a fabrication lab where you can come in and learn how to make for yourself using the latest technology. And we really were keen to widen the debate on design and making as part of our programme. So we weren't just looking at what's possible to make through industry, but what's actually possible to make in Scotland, full stop. Whether you're a designer or an artist or a maker or somebody who's actually just really interested in finding out more. And that's really the crux of our Scotland Can Make It project. So yeah, I think that's everything that we have to say on that stage. So thanks very much.